Hi, and welcome to College Planning Untangled, where we help you simplify the college planning process. And I'm here with Bobby Hood. I'm Kristin Clark. Bobby, how are you doing today?
Just great. It's back to warm weather again in Dallas. It's crazy, cold and then warm and then cold
I know, just wait until next
again.
week.
Exactly.
It'll change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So today, Bobby, what we wanted to talk about is how to prep for the ACT and SAT tests.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, so this month we're kind of going through different things. Next couple of weeks we'll be talking a little in more detail about prepping. But so last week we talked about how to choose between SAT and ACT if that's a choice that you need to make, and today we're just going to talk about if you decide that you need to prep, for the tests, what should you do, right? And I think this can be super stressful for people because it's just like everything else with college planning. Like you hear people saying, "Oh, I worked with this tutor, or took this class, or I just used books, or my kid just figured it out," or and I think the first thing a lot of people do is they say, "Well, I'm just going to send my kid off on a Saturday and have them take the real ACT, and then the next month take the real SAT, and see how they do, and then let's decide what to do." But I mean, all you're doing is taking 2 Saturdays and wasting them,
Burning them,
right?
right? Well,
Yeah.
and Bobby, you're right. I would say too, I know you're going to tell them what they should do, but one of the things I wanted to stop you on is every kid is different.
Yeah.
And I always like to talk about the swirl and
Mhm.
where all these parents are out there and they're like, well, let me tell you what I did. And you're like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, I'm
Right.
doing this wrong. It's like, guys, sit back, listen to what Bobby has to say about this because do what's right for your kid. They're all different. Yeah. So,
Absolutely. Right. And so part of it is, you'll probably be thinking about this in the spring of junior year if you hadn't before, because you get PSAT scores back, and suddenly maybe your kid who's a junior is like, students at school are talking about how they did on the PSAT, and everybody's suddenly interested in what college you're going to go to. And so you got to think about it. Right. And there are test optional schools. You can go without taking the SAT or ACT if your GPA is really high. Right. But if your GPA is not very high, you should probably consider it. But also you should be having the conversation about, like, what kind of college do you want to go to? Or, is a trade school, or is a community college the thing you want to do? Like, there are lots of different options. Right now is time to start talking about that. Right. But once you make the decision, you say, well, let's check out the SAT and ACT. Let's see what's going on. Well, don't send, off and take a Saturday to take the real thing. Just, if you want to just contact me, my link is on my website. You can just send me a contact and I'll provide you with a real past SAT or ACT that you can take at home. And I have an app that you can use to proctor the test at home that makes it feel like the real test, right? With me reading proctoring instructions and all that. You can get that app on the App Store, the SAT audio proctor and the ACT audio proctor. So that's the first thing. Find out what your baseline is by taking it at home, right? And then if you want to go a route that's not a big investment for prepping, if your student is a self-starter, uh, just purchase a book with good strategies in it. I do recommend the Princeton Reviews Premium SAT Prep or Premium ACT Prep. Those are both really, really great books. And a student who just works through those books is very likely to get very nice improvements on the SAT or ACT. And so that would be a reasonable place to start if you just wanted to, like, do some prep at home and get in and out of the process for $40, right? Uh,
and I'm going to go
yeah.
back to thinking about your own kid. I had one that totally surprised me and got the book, raised his
Mhm.
score to what he wanted, and
Yeah.
he was one and done, and we moved on, right?
Absolutely. That I mean,
Yeah.
that is entirely possible to do and a reasonable place to start. Do not just simply say, "Hey, I know Khan Academy has free SAT and ACT prep on their site." They do, but they don't teach strategies at all. So you cannot simply just do Khan Academy. You must learn strategies for the tests. If you're
Why?
missing, like,
Why?
so if you're missing, like, if you don't know how to do, like, if like in math you missed geometry, like COVID was terrible and you just don't know any geometry, you can go relearn geometry through Khan Academy. That's a good thing to do. But what Khan Academy will do is when it gives you these problems and then you miss a problem, it gives you an explanation and it'll say, here are the 16 steps for solving this problem that takes 4 minutes, right? If you try to take the test that way, you are not going to finish. You're going to run out of time and you're not going to get the score you want at all. what you need are strategies that show you how to quickly get through questions, what the efficient way to solve problems is, how to, think about the question and use strategies that'll move way quicker through the test. And you can only get that from test prep books, not from Khan Academy, but plenty of test prep books can do it. And that's part of the thing, right? And also, I used to teach classes at the Princeton Review. Those classes are great if your kid needs a regular planned like setting, and they're going to do better if they have other kids that they can talk to and kind of be part of a social group. If that's what they need, classes don't cost that much. You can go and take a course from Princeton Review or Kaplan. For some students, that can be very, very effective. Princeton Review used to advertise that students who take their class and take 4 tests and do lots and lots of homework, a 25-hour class, 10 classes, on average, a student who does that would generally raise their score about 3 points on the ACT or about 100 to 200 points on the SAT. So that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do as well. For me, though, my focus is students today are so overwhelmed and busy, right, that trying to fit in another every Wednesday or every Saturday course for 10 classes, is going to really take up a lot of their time, and it can be really stressful, right? And so my whole thing when I work with students one-on-one is trying to be as efficient as possible and get them in and out of the process really quickly, if that makes sense, right? And so on average, students work with me. So I ran some numbers on it for the students that are graduating this year. So on average, most of my students work about 4 to 6 hours with me. 60% of them work 4 to 6 hours. 20% get done in less than 4 hours. 20% get done in more than 6 hours. And on average, the students improve. I think it's about 0.7 points on the ACT per hour they work with me. And so in 4 to 6 hours, they're seeing 3 to 5 points of improvement on average. That's the range of what students generally do. And so I have students that are improving 7 or 10 points on the ACT, a lot of them, and it's kind of crazy. And so the way I do that, go ahead.
No, I think the reason though, Bobby, is because it is that strategy discussion.
Mhm.
They know the material, but the
Right.
fact that you're teaching them strategy, I think, is huge.
Absolutely. And so the thing is, if you go to this, one of those courses or you work through the book, it's like, okay, today in our, SAT class, we're going to talk about geometry for half the session, and then we're going to talk about commas and semicolons for the other half of the session, right? But if you're already good at geometry, you don't need to go to that class, right? And so what I do that makes it so much more efficient is you start by having the student take a real past ACT at home. And then in our first session, we just dive into that math section of that first test. And I say, okay, did you miss question 9? Okay, let's talk about that one. Okay, what's the next question you missed? Okay, let's talk about this strategy and look at these questions. And we only look at the questions the student missed. And then I show them the strategies that apply so that they will get those questions right the next time, right? And stuff they got right, we're not going to worry about. And same thing for the reading and the science. I show them the strategies. And then the homework is just simply, okay, here's another past test. Now take that test. And then they're going to come back and they will do a lot better generally on the test, right? Because they're going to get a lot of those questions right that they missed the first time. But they're going to miss some new stuff, right? Things that they got right the first time because the question was easy or because they got lucky or they guessed. And so the second time through, they're going to miss other new stuff. We're going to talk about those strategies. And so it does take a few tests to kind of cover all of the things that they need to work on. But so what this really ends up happening is like, it probably takes 2 hours to look at that first test in full, right? We've got to look at the math and the English and the reading and the science. So that takes 2 sessions with me. But then they come back to review the second test. They've done a lot better. Their score's probably already gone up a few points on the ACT already at that point. And now we're just looking at the new stuff they've missed. So the second test, we might review that second test in 1 hour, right? And then they go and take a third test and their score improves even more. And so they miss fewer questions. And so then the third test, we might review that third test in a session that's only 45 minutes or only 30 minutes. And so I have a lot of students who work with me for 4 hours or 5 hours, but they meet with me 7 times or something like that. The sessions start getting shorter and shorter. And I think this is different from almost any tutor that you talk to, because it seems to me like the tutoring business is like, have your kid meet with me every Tuesday for the rest of their junior year for 1 hour,
Yes, and Bobby,
right?
nobody has time for that. And you know
Absolutely.
what? I say that, and
I mean,
I preach, do what's right for
mhm,
your kid.
right.
If your kid learns better in that environment, but
Sure.
by all means, go down that path. I just know how busy these kids are today, and it's just really tough.
Absolutely. Yeah, and part of the thing too is that I think a lot of tutoring, at least when I first started tutoring one-on-one, face-to-face, I would say all these strategies and say, okay, this strategy, this will help you on this question, and this strategy will help you on this question. And the students might take some notes or they might take no notes. And students think they're going to remember everything you say, but they're not going to. They
Yeah.
might remember, most humans can recall maybe three pieces of information from a 20-minute chunk of information. So it's kind of like with our live streams that we do, there's only a few takeaways that you're going to come away from, right?
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
it, right? And so what I do is when I work with the students, I am bringing the questions up on screen. I'm writing all over the screen. I'm highlighting things. I'm drawing arrows and connecting things. And then everything I write down is saved as a PDF file in a Google Drive folder that the student can access. And this is what's really funny about today's students. They think and they prepare, they study so differently than you and I did, right? They think about Google Drive folders and things like that, and they don't care about paper. They don't want any paper. They want something that they can go back to in their folder and they can go in there and review it and look at it online. And so that is what makes this so efficient, is because basically we're creating a customized study guide for that student that is only about questions they missed. So it is only stuff that they particularly need. And it doesn't have a whole bunch of stuff that they don't care about. Right.
And I gotta tell you, Bobby, I'm always the way I'm built is
Hmm.
fastest path to cash, right? Where it's like,
Right.
get me there fast, make it be meaningful, to where I know I'm getting something accomplished when I'm with you.
Yep.
So I really like that about your service, and Bobby helped one of my sons, by the way, get the extra 2 points he needed on the ACT to get a full ride. Um, but I think the other thing is that I love that there's the strategy part. I love that
Mhm.
there's it's very focused,
Mhm.
and that, oh, this is the other part. And so for me, I can't get this from a book. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to read a book.
Yeah,
I have to have somebody talking to me, telling me, writing, doing all the things. Um,
absolutely.
so I can see where there's some kids like that too, right? That they need
Oh,
all.
for sure. And I think that's part of the thing is, so like part of it is, I say, okay, here's a strategy. And then the student comes back in the next session and they miss the same kind of question again. Well, that means I didn't explain it in the way that helped them. And so I kind of get them to say back to me, okay, what did you do on this question? And they say, oh, here's what I did. And I say, oh, okay. So so let me redirect you in this direction because that's not exactly what I was meaning to say. And so that's the difference between working with someone one-on-one than reading a book, because in the book you either get it or you don't. And yeah, a lot of students don't want, it's just so passive to sit there reading a book, right?
Right.
And so
Yep.
that's the whole thing. And basically, I tell students and parents a lot of times, this is that get in and get out and get done, right?
Oh, for sure.
I
It's
say
all.
yeah, I
It's
say,
all.
if it was like summertime and you had nothing to do and you took a test on Monday, you meet with me on Tuesday, we review half the test. You take another math and English section on Wednesday. Thursday, we finish reviewing the first test. Friday, you finish the second test. And then Saturday, we review a second test, take a third test. You could be done with the entire process, get all of your score improvement in 10 days. I have had students do it in the summer and they are done. They're ready to go. And then after that, you just keep practicing. But you probably don't even need to talk to me much,
Yeah.
and so then you just have to say, okay, if you're doing it during junior year or whatever during the school year, you need to plan on having other things going on in your life. But still, I tell the students, I'm like, let's just get this done in 3 weeks. Let's just be done with it. Meet with me if find 5, 6 times you can meet with me in 3 weeks. Find 12 hours of time you can use to take 3 or 4 tests. That's it. Right. And
Yep,
that's all
double
the
down and
commitment that
make
it
it
is.
happen, right?
Yeah.
It's
That's
like,
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. So the three
that's it.
options again, then, Bobby, to close this out
Mhm.
is get a book.
Yep, you can purchase a book. I do recommend the Princeton Reviews books. They're great. You can get a book, work through it. You could do that before you start anything else, or you could take a course, right? Uh, or you can, get a book. And I didn't exactly say this. You should always take real past ACT and SAT tests when you practice at home. So don't just go looking around for tests. Find real past tests, and I can provide those to you. So message me, and even if you're not working with me, I'm happy to provide tests that you can take at home. And so, yeah, buy a book, take a course from Princeton Review or Kaplan or whoever else. But I would go with like a good, reputable course because you don't want to waste your time. Or consult with me. I'm happy to have a free consultation about explaining exactly how my tutoring process works. Work with me. I will do everything I can to get you in and out of the process as quickly as possible and let you move on with your life.
Got it. Okay. I think I got it. And I put them all in the notes. So
That's great.
cool.
All right. Well, next week we'll dive in a little bit more to like some test strategies and what my tutoring is actually like, and maybe I'll even give some examples and stuff. So
Yeah,
this
and
is
I know
great.
we've got people watching, so if you
Mhm.
guys have any questions, we'll stay on for a couple seconds here. If
Oh,
you've got
sure.
something you want to ask Bobby directly,
Oh,
please
yeah.
make.
Always happy to take questions while we're having these things, or also you can comment on our videos and throw in questions, and we'll address them next week. So we're here every Wednesday. So
All right,
all right,
Bobby, thank you.
absolutely,
I think that you're the guru of SAT and ACT. So I appreciate it, and we'll see you next week.
absolutely. Thanks so much, Kristen.